Welcome everybody, Brady here from VGWX. We are back again live after our mini hiatus, after our curiosity to see what was going to happen with this weekend, and we're going to break down what's going to be happening tonight into tomorrow, and then also be breaking down, what to expect upcoming here in the future. Certainly, still a continued exciting pattern, in my opinion. With there will be definitely multiple opportunities to continue to go through January here. So we're going to be breaking that all down. So come on in. Again, always like to say, take a walk with me. We're going to break down, if you're unsure what we do here, we break down the weather here, try to do it simple in a simplified manner, but really go into the details, the nooks and crannies of what makes these events happen, why it's happening, what I'm looking at, the different scenarios. So we're going to be breaking this all down. So come on in. It should be some fun. Let's do it. Welcome, everybody. How are we doing? Let's open up the chat here as we get set up. All right, get the X chat up. Let's get YouTube going. How we doing, everybody? Just finding my thumbnail here. Don't mind me. How we doing, everybody? How we doing? There you are. Vamos. All right. How we doing? How are we doing? Let's get cooking here. My boy Peyton Pritchard likes to say for any Celtics fans. All right. Let's get the pen tool going here as well. Again, breaking down the snow coming tonight into tomorrow for places that haven't seen it yet, and then also going to be breaking down the upcoming pattern, what to expect going forward here. Winter's not going away anytime soon, so we're going to be kind of breaking down good old details of what to expect upcoming here. I've lost my pen tool. Where did you go? Bring it back here. How is everybody's weekend going here? I know it's maybe not the I've been pretty busy here, so wanted to go live either last night or the night before, but I actually want to make a video a few nights ago as well, breaking down what was going on. But I've been very, very busy lately, coincidentally with the storm not being what it could have been, but I guess that's my bad for not bringing it to you guys. But doing our best over here. So let's get Weather Bell up. Let's get radar up as well. First we'll go to satellites. So let's get going here. So again, welcome everybody. Appreciate you all here in X and YouTube. Again, not a major event here to expect tomorrow, but is notable for sure. Definitely is notable. Obviously the South kicking in and getting their snow earlier today, and then we also saw, some places like southeastern Virginia, who's currently getting hit right now with snow. So, there's gonna be some, I think, some exciting prospects about what happens tomorrow, even though it's a minor snow event. My thing is, even though we haven't had the big one yet, especially here in southern New England, mid-Atlantic, true mid-Atlantic has gotten, you can definitely say that was their big one. they're not going to complain about that if that's their biggest storm after the past couple of winters, how that's gone. I can't imagine any of you are, and especially with more coming right now. But I would expect there to be, you just got to stack. You got to stack, keep stacking seasonal totals so that when you do get your big one, for a snowstorm, that you have it to add up over the seasonal. So that's kind of how I like to look at things here, and um, assume the big storm will happen eventually. Not like forecasting it, but just in terms of when you plan out your seasonal, especially in New England, that's kind of the idea. So take the snow when you can get it, and we're gonna get some tomorrow. So as you can see, we're lining up here. We're lining up the system from the southwest. Here's a look at the low level water vapor here. From our southwest, and you can see as we progress here. Take a look. Um, so this is kind of the main batch, the heaviest batch for precipitation here is our trough. Very, very, just did not get going soon enough here. As you can see, really just starting. We're starting to see our storm amplify now. You can kind of see a little bit of expansion going on here, but it's really disconnected. We didn't get a clean stream in our action here, and had we, um, this would have been, this could have very well been an all timer, but it's not. That's the reality. So this is what we're dealing with. So again, Atlanta, places Alabama, Mississippi, they had their snow. Uh, they had their snow earlier today, and now we see this advance into the Carolinas, especially um, into western parts of the Carolinas, and continue to expand out through southeastern Virginia. But we continue to look in tomorrow. As you can see, starting interior Northeast, starting to fill in pretty well now. Still a little dry across, from Philly to Boston, but that will fill in some. Again, a general coating to 2 inches, I think, from Philly to New York City. But I think there could be an opportunity for some overperformance tomorrow. We'll look at radar quickly before we slide and take a look at how this progresses. But just to get a general idea here that um, it's not a major snow event by any means, but I think there could be a few surprises, especially in New England. But you can see we're starting to fill in. Philly's starting to fill in now, so there could be actually snow hold right now. Again, none of this is hitting the ground out here. Um, at least I'd assume so. Not. Let me double double check there that we aren't seeing, and we're not. No snow is hitting the ground. Seeing it further southwest. In fact, most of this here is not hitting the ground, so to say. Most of this, even into northeastern Pennsylvania, not a lot of. There could be some flakes flying, but not a lot of snow reports. Actually, the brunt of it still is centered down here. That's where the most of our snow reports you're seeing are coming out of right now. And then also southeastern Virginia, you can see a little bit further south on the screen is actually getting a pretty good thumping. Right now, as some of that heavier snow is moving through. It's some borderline heavy snow. Again, it's a little bit wetter down there. In terms of a little less fluffy of a snow, these ratios, but you can see near the Richmond area into Virginia Beach and towards Norfolk and Chesapeake Bay that there are getting some pretty good snow down there, probably somewhere in the 2 to 5 inch range, maybe isolated higher totals, but that's kind of the rough idea. And that's a pretty good snowfall for them too, especially after getting the last event. So they're getting probably more snowfall this week than they have maybe the last 2 winters combined, some places down there, if I had to guess. So the pretty good, again, mid-Atlantic event to go along with this one as well, even though lighter. Currently snowing pretty good over Washington and Baltimore at the moment, so we'll continue to look for them to fill in some, but again, not a significant event. Can confirm it's all Verga and East PA. Thank you, Twisted. I appreciate that. So yeah, so pretty much all Verga right here. Maybe some spot flakes, currently some flurries, but for the most part, still shunted to the southwest, and that's not unexpected. So when you see radar, it's not supposed to be snowing quite yet. It's just lift that's higher up, and there is, again, it's not a lot of lift that we're working with here in the atmosphere, meaning upward vertical motion in terms of, you know, that it kind of something we look at when we look, especially with heavier snow. The more lift you see, the heavier the snow tends to be, and still not a lot of lift to work with in this system. But you can see we are seeing some present, just not saturated enough, either in the dendritic growth zone or into the lower levels of the atmosphere, at least, to be able to get um, enough to hit the ground right now, especially. So that's what we're looking at on radar. But again, look for this to start filling in here over the next few hours into Eastern PA, across Philly, Jersey, Long Island. Everybody's going to get snow here. It's not a question of who's getting snow. Everybody's getting snow, but how much? Again, I think coating to 2 inches generally in this area for the most part, across Philly, New York City, not a major thing. And again, probably the same for a lot of southwestern Connecticut, if I had to guess as well, and Long Island. Maybe a little bit eastern Long Island can maybe get a little bit more if you were really lucky, but probably not if I had to guess. I think where it gets interesting here is once we start moving, into Maine, um, eastern New Hampshire, and then Worcester County eastward, basically Tallinn County eastward in Connecticut. This is where I think it starts to get pretty interesting. Um, and again, I like getting even the little things. I really, I can appreciate a win from a small event the same way I can from a bigger storm. Sometimes, it's really, one thing I kind of love about, of forecasting is some of the small wins sometimes you get from those smaller events when it's not being talked about a lot. There was some hype obviously with this earlier in the week, and some would say as needed. As we didn't. We have a fun thumbnail, but we had no. I warned y'all. No, there was no guarantees. I said, some of y'all were worrying about a rain snow line 5 days out. I was trying to say, like, listen, there was a bit. We got to get the snowstorm first before we start getting to that point. And it can be tricky navigating. And again, with my analysis, there was no point over the past couple days where I was thinking we were going to get a major blizzard out of this. But I do have to highlight the potential for how this could have potentially, really have so much upper level energy available here that this could have easily been, a much more significant event, even if not a major snowstorm. This had the potential to still be like kind of a good moderate snowstorm. It wouldn't have taken a crazy amount for this to happen. That didn't happen, but it's my job to highlight that scenario. At least for me, I feel that's what I like to do is highlight those scenarios and be able to pinpoint, kind of what to potentially expect. And wasn't forecasting it, but some kind of you know took it, I think, misconstrued my tone a little bit. But as we move in here, I like the NAM idea a little bit. I think the HR is notorious for doing precip in some of these setups, especially some of these lighter snow setups. Again, especially when there's not a lot of lift present, the HR I feel like can really struggle to pick up. You can see here at 12, you know, the midnight forecast here. Not too bad picking up on the Virga, but and the NAM doing the same thing here. So I mean, the HR gets to reload every hour. So yeah, it gets to it kind of gets to make up at least a little bit for how things play out. But as we progress here, I'm looking at this, and I think there's some potential here. For just again light snow across mainly, maybe some moderate bands, but again lighter accumulations for the most part. And then as we slide here, notice what starts to happen here in New England. So it moves through a little bit of coastal enhancement, just a little bit maybe. And again, as this is moving through, we're seeing our low pressure system intensify off the coast. It's actually a very strong low pressure system, believe it or not. It's gonna get into the 980s tomorrow. Typically a 980 low that is just south of the benchmark, just southwest of the benchmark. Typically, the radar does not look like this, and it's very indicative to show how close we really were with the system. I don't think a lot of people are going to realize. They're just going to look at the precipitation maps. Not the saying that you should not, but um, I wouldn't personally. I don't love these things. We're showing them because the event's happening, and it's like whatever. It's very simple to illustrate the point. Um, I guess I'm a major hypocrite then. uh, but my point is, this is very close. This was very close to being, and we can break down very quickly why this was so close. For those curious, I hate to put salt in the wound here, but I mean, very, very, very close. Again, we trended a little bit. A little bit more positively tilted with our trough and struggled to get a little bit more upper level energy out ahead early on. But man, if this northern stream, if we were able to see this part, come down a little bit more and see, really, if I could play it, I wish I could play it back a little bit. We can do that. Let's go to the 60. We can get here. If we were able to get this piece right here, if this thing was just about here in North Dakota, um, this could have very easily been an all-out blizzard. The margins for how this happened, it's just once if you don't get the phase, you don't get it. It's very simple. It's very cut and dry. There's some gray area in terms of stream interaction, as we're seeing here currently. But if you don't get the phase, you just don't get it. If that upper level low is not able to get out ahead, it's just not going to happen, right? We had a that upper level low starts developing out, after that first northern branch comes in. And then what happens here is this actually, instead of phasing, works to suppress it. So actually, if this wasn't here, this probably could have been actually a pretty big snowstorm on itself, actually, believe it or not. So this is actually working to just suppress our snowstorm at this point until it's ready to be in a more favorable position to undergo a phase, is what we call it, a stream interaction. And you can see it just happens just a little late, and right there, and all of a sudden now you've got a monster storm off the Atlantic. Again, some of your margins, I tell you guys all the time, it can be real thin margins that can make or break sometimes your snowfall seasons. And this is one of those that we're gonna love to maybe have back. Um, if we didn't have a great snowfall winter, then this would one we would love to have back, to be like, man, what if? But it's fine. Mother Nature. It's never about. There's a lot of what ifs with Mother Nature, but one thing I can say is Mother Nature has her plan, and you just got to embrace it. That's really it. What does vorticity indicate on the model? How strong the spin is here at 500 millibars in the atmosphere. So I love using the vertical column here. Imagine this is your surface. Imagine this is the top of your atmosphere. And imagine here now looks like the middle, but we call it the upper levels of the atmosphere at this point. Somewhere in here, that was a horrible line, but that's about 500 millibars. And, you have like 250 up here, and then you'll have like 850, lower to the surface. We call lower levels 700 millibar, mid levels. So 500 millibars is how strong the spin is at, 500 millibars is how strong the spin is at, vorticity is a measure of how strong the spin is, and that's what allows us, this really allows you to look under the hood of what's happening higher up in the atmosphere, and this is where really the magic for your mid-latitude cyclones happen. And so this is, in my opinion, the best tool to use for forecasting. If you were to give me only one tool to forecast a snowstorm, it would be 500 milli. It would not be a P-type map. It would be 500 millibar of vorticity. Yeah, it would definitely be 504. Especially until the day of. If you only give me one tool to use until the day of, I would use 500 for it. It's just, I think, in my opinion, it's the best way to forecast. Seas lost horribly, missed an absolute bomb. Who got it worse than me? Asha, you're fine. Stop it. Spoiled child you are, Ashan. Feeling this upcoming pattern supports a blizzard. Well, I hope your feeling's right. And I had a feeling the Patriots were going to win 9 games in 2023. Feelings mean nothing. It's a good point. Could always be a Penn State fan too. Could be an Oregon college football fan too as well. I don't know, that didn't work out so well this year. Thought it was the year, was not. Arizona State's the second team for me, so that did not go over too well either. So fun to watch though. It was a fun game, ASU Texas. But yeah, again, your margins are thin here. Thin margins in the wintertime. This is going to be one of those. Even regardless if we have a good winter, for a lot of people here, Mid Atlantic, it's going to be really hard to not have a good winter at this point. You're really like one more snowstorm away from really just having a good winter, even if it was a moderate one. I think Mid Atlantic people would already call this a win compared to the last two winters. So yeah, but for Northeast and especially New England, definitely one of those ones where you be like, man, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and you can see since the phase doesn't happen, you lag a lot of this behind here. A lot of this, upper level energy gets shunted instead of getting out ahead in front, and you're a little too late. You're a little too late with how everything progresses here. Just thinking about it, I try to get away from thinking about it too much about what it could have been, because I'm a weather weenie at heart, proudly. Anybody that uses weather weenie as a derogatory term is that's a strong word, I feel like, for that. But just bad intentions. It's just like, man, you're a weather weenie too, man. You love this crap just as much as any psycho delusional person as well. So we'll look at the longer range after, but this is what we're working with. And so what ends up happening, it's a pretty strong, so you can see a pretty strong storm that ends up developing. But what we see here is as the banding moves through, a little bit of enhancement as the storm low pressure system starts to take off here again. Sleet mix across the Carolinas and freezing rain earlier today as well. And then as we see the snow shield continue to progress northeast here, it will fill in pretty nicely. And I think the NAM has a better idea with the scenario. Sometimes overdoes it just barely with the preset, but I think it's on. I think it has the right idea here. And where notice what starts to happen since it's not a clean phase. Remember we talked about it. It's a messy phase here at the upper levels. You see how you have two pieces that are trying to get a clean phase, but just can't quite yet. So what happens here is these isobars, since there's still more upper level energy to lag behind here, and all this is moving through. So all that 500 upper level energy here has to move over top. And so as that happens, you can see that too. A lot of it gets caught out in front since you're trying to amplify this cyclone. You can see all of this gets sheared out. But a lot of this gets sheared out over us here in New England as well, at least for me. And what happens here is these isobars are going to invert some. Notice the spin here counterclockwise of these isobars start to invert here, and they will in Maine a little bit. So we'll see some enhancement there across Maine, a little bit of their special and into interior New Hampshire as well as part of the Maine system as well moving through. But you can see the enhancement. Notice it start already before it even gets there tomorrow morning. You see this enhancement off the coast here. And what happens now is, again, you're going to be pretty decent ratios for a lot of people. Some close to the Cape will probably deal with a little bit of a wetter snow. Could even theoretically mix in rain in the afternoon. Possibly. As these isobars invert, notice what starts to happen here. You start to see some enhancement pick up, and a lot of models showing that it would be done by now around 12, but notice you're around and you're still getting banding off the Atlantic here, and that's going to allow for maybe some prolonged light to moderate snowfall totals here, and that could really potentially enhance your totals, especially in a place like Essex County here, up by We're good. Bro, the Mac ain't even overheat yet. Is the funny thing. The Mac is not even overheated yet. Um, it's just started. I don't know what happened. We're chilling. We're chilling. We're fine. I caught it early. Don't worry. I'm on point. I'm on point tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. But again, we're chilling. Don't worry. Don't y'all worry. We're on point. We're on point tonight. So as we progress here, notice we start to see radar again. We start to see radar fill back in here, and I know it's a lot of talk of a general coding to do. I think east of Worcester County, especially east here of Tolland County, um, I think there's an opportunity here for like for 1 to 3, maybe widespread. I got a MacBook Pro. I've had this thing for a while now, so and might be investing in a mini PC soon. So we'll get there. Trust me. I'm highly aware of. We're running a higher operation now, so I got to live up to the standard. I'm not used to those kind of standards, but we're gonna live up to it. I promise. Um, we're unlike this storm. We're gonna live up to the hype. Hopefully. But the idea is, I think 1 to 3, 1 to 3 plus in this area, and then maybe even somewhere flirted in here, some pockets of 3 plus, depending on where some of this inverted trough sets up. And again, there's not a lot of lift to work with here. There's not a lot of lift. There will be a little bit as the banding moves through here, and you can kind of peep that a little bit. You can see a little bit. I've seen as much as I peeped the sound, and some of them were even close to -1 omega, which could support heavy snow, but borderline heavy snow. But nothing more likely than your darker green bands on radar tomorrow for the most part. Maybe you'll see some yellow pixels, a couple faint yellow pixels, but for the most part here, it will be more of like those light green to dark green radar echoes you'll see tomorrow morning move through. And then as we start to see the low pressure start to kick east, that's when we'll see, and again, we start seeing, that cleaner phase start to occur here. But until that happens, these isobars invert, and we'll see that flow off the Atlantic, and we'll see these bands come in, and they'll actually rotate off the ocean at this point from northeast to southwest, and then drop down vertically to the south here, almost similar to like February 2015, but like a Walmart version, so to say, meaning nowhere near to the extent, obviously. If anybody remembers that, how those bands kind of rotated throughout the ocean. And you'll see ocean enhanced inverted trough here is kind of is what will be the show. And I think there's some ISO 3 to 6 possible here. I think this turns into a general 1 to 3 east of Worcester County. I think there's some ISO 3 to 6s in here potentially. And again, it would be more ISO 3 to 4, but maybe a 5 or a 6. A 7 wouldn't even theoretically shock. I know that sounds crazy given what we were talking about, but it would be somewhere in here. If that band is able to work onshore, that could really make things things interesting here potentially. So I would really like to see how this plays out tomorrow. I would love for some of my North Shore and Cape Ann folks to get on and into it tomorrow. I'll happily settle for a couple inches of snow. That'd be fantastic tomorrow. If I got 3, I would be so happy. That'll get us over double digits for the seasonal total. So that would be fantastic. But notice again, and look at how strong your low pressure. This is why this is a strong low pressure. Look at it, 980 low pressure, maybe a little too strong over amplifying. We got a 980 millibar low pressure system just south of the benchmark, and this is what's going to be fueling here your inverted trough. Pretty good moisture source to work with, dating back to even the Pacific in the Gulf of Mexico here. So I think there's an opportunity for this to actually do pretty well. And again, no crazy low-level lift here to work with. I'm telling you, we're going to break down what to expect after. First, we're going through um, tomorrow first quickly. Um, the snow's kind of starting to move through, but maybe I'll make a snow map, even though it's started for the Mid Atlantic a little bit. But I make most of it is the Northeast for our snow maps. But again, pretty cool, well saturated. Even for a lighter snow event, pretty decently well saturated here. And about a lot of people will be in the 20s, mid to upper 20s for the most part. Maybe some low 30s for some people closer to the coast, but again, it will be decent rate. And look where your dendritic growth zone is importantly as well here. Your DGZ is about from just about under, just above 600 here to pretty low in the atmosphere here to about 800 millibars. Is your dendritic growth zone. And again, you're pretty well saturated in there. It's a lower than average dendritic growth zone, meaning you have good upper level cold air to work with here, meaning that supports, a good cold air above the surface, I should say. And that's going to allow for, I think, a fluffier snow. And even though it's not unbelievable ascent to work with, meaning lift, omega, there's going to be enough here to potentially support, some, maybe quarter inch to half inch per hour rates briefly. But for the most part, quarter inch, those 0.3 to point, 0.4 inch per hour rates, quarter to half inch per hour rates, probably for the most part tomorrow. There's not as good of a sounding right there on the HRR, but HR a little bit less enthusiastic with the beginning of this event now, but that's pretty good right there. It's decent. You have, maybe almost 0.5 omega here in your dendritic growth zone here. This is actually pretty close to where I live. I was just trying to pick the heavier banding here, but keep where your dendritic growth zone is here, and look how low it's almost below 800. Your DGZ here, so somewhat decent lift, enough to work with here. Especially remember when you have higher ratios, you don't need as much lift to get some of this higher rates necessarily. HR is starting to kind of pick up on this now. Is really not picking up on it. It's going to play from behind here. I'm telling you, if the HR has that much already, I think tomorrow could be really interesting potentially. And again, if you just continue to prolong like quarter inch per hour rates for about 6 hours, you can do the math there. That's close to about 2 inches of snow. So you can start to add up. You can start to it's half, 1.5 if you were to think about it, and then you have a couple hours of half inch per hour rates. All of a sudden, you got 2.5 inches of snow, and it's a decent light snow event. So this is what we're talking about here. And then think about if you get into some of that consistent, moderate banding there, in some of those heavier bands that roll off, there'll be probably some more decent low level lift to work with. Just offshore, you can take a look here at, if you see what I'm talking about now. You're able to work some of that onshore. Look how good and some of that lift is. Now, again, closer to the coast, some of those ratios will be not quite as good, but still pretty good where your dendritic growth zone is. You just might be a little bit warmer towards the surface, but I think there's some real opportunity here to potentially, maybe do a little bit better than thought potentially. Just even yesterday with this event for a lot of Eastern New England, and I think it turns into a lot of 1 to 4 across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine here. I wouldn't be shocked if some Maine were to even if the ISO couple totals higher. Their ratios will be very, very good there likely. Let me check how well saturated they are. Yeah, pretty well saturated. Yeah, those will be very good ratios in Maine tomorrow. And there's some pretty good lift here. You can see peep the dendritic growth zone just above 650 down to about 800. So in about, a little less than minus 0.3 quarters, 0.7, 0.7, 0.8, maybe close to. So some decent lift to work with as well. Not crazy, not a ton, but when you have higher ratio snow, it does add up. Again, you can keep the NAM here in Eastern Mass. Not as good, low, not as good ascent there on that one. Not a ton of lift to work with, but again, this is a snow event. This is not what we're dealing with. It's a lighter snow event, so there's not going to be a ton of great mid-level dynamics here. It will be, I think, a little bit more upper level driven in terms of in terms of dynamics here, but we will be seeing just enough lift to continually prolong light to moderate snowfall across the area. So that's why I think some areas can overperform, and it wouldn't shock me to see some isolated areas of 3 to 6 tomorrow, with potentially more of a widespread 1 to 3 is kind of where I'm at right now. I think this ends up doing actually pretty well, and you can peep the HRR for a second. I don't really like the snowfall maps, but see if the HRR is kind of starting to. I don't know how the HRR does their snowfall into liquid and how it does all that crap here, but it's starting to pick up on some of those higher totals. Again, that's kind of the idea here, is that generally east of Worcester County, that's where I think you'll be more of a widespread 1 to 3. And again, some of the terrain up here, this is all kind of just a 1 to 4 event up here for the interior. And I'm coding to probably more of an inch, coding to 1.5 maybe in New York City and max. Again, for a lot of Connecticut as well, and northeastern Connecticut will be able to make out with a little bit more. New York City, again, like I just said, about coding to 1.5, I believe, in New York City. Again, this map is not my snowfall thoughts, but I was curious. So yeah, that's the general idea. Maybe I put out a snowfall map upcoming here, but like to redeem myself a little bit, but I don't want that to be a motivating factor for a snowfall map. But I would hate for this to be like 5-6 inches somewhere and me not discuss it at all and put a snowfall map. So even though it would be kind of delayed, I would like to put it out still, even though it's pretty late. Sorry. 3.5 hour breakdown of the 288 GFS about hit. I haven't even looked at the long range GFS, but I'm guessing it's going to be interesting. The legend is back. Yes, I never left. I was always here, Twisted. Use the GFS. Yeah, the GFS is definitely long range. Whatever. It's. I don't think it's necessarily any so much worse or greater than the European. I maybe give the Euro a little bit edge, but yeah, the GFS definitely. There's something went on with the sampling, the data assimilation, how it interpreted what was going on there. It was adamant. The GFS was adamant that there was going to be a big storm. It was very adamant for about 2 days. For about 2 days straight, the GFS was pretty adamant. And then even it took it some time. It wasn't like a quick all of a sudden. It was a slow, concave to what the Euro had suggested. And it took it definitely, GFS, it definitely, not saying I would thought it was the end all be all, but I had a little bit more trust for that, just a little bit. I don't have high expectations, but the GFS, the Jeffs was shown it too. So I'm sure you're saying model support, but or other model support. But the thing that had me was question is like this would take an all out ensemble failure too. There was a good amount of Jeffs hits as well on there. It wasn't crazy ensemble support, granted, but it was solid ensemble support. It was a 4 to 5 inch me about 5 days out from a snowstorm. So it was there. It's just it did not verify, and that's the reality. And again, I told you guys, let's make sure we have a storm first before we start really tracking this thing. And I never really in depthly tracked this thing because there just wasn't I didn't really see it yet to buy in. I never really bought in fully to this, that idea that we were going to have. And, I'm glad I did. I'm very glad I didn't, could very well make a fool of yourself if you start buying into the model that you want to see. So, pat on the back for not being an idiot, I guess. as in the euro wasn't caving at all. Sorry, I don't know what that means, Chef Curry. The euro did take steps towards the GFS, so the euro was too progressive. That was play out. So they kind of met in the middle a little bit, but um, points favored the euro in terms of the idea of this of the phase being way too late and progressive. But um, as we progress here, I did some deep diving into the pattern, as you saw in my tweets this afternoon and evening. Um, I'm actually very excited. I'm very excited. Again, I'm going to remain skeptical, but I am very excited about how this plays out. We can look at the operationals first, but we're going to be looking at a good amount of ensembles tonight as well. I just haven't seen the GFS yet, and you don't mind me for looking down the long range here, but we could, as we start to progress here, there could be some clippers next week. So keep an eye first on some light snow potential, and you can see here as some of these systems move through. There could be some light, probably some lake effect snow if I had to guess as well. There will be some light snow potential as we progress here throughout next week. So keep an eye on that. We'll any of them, really become threats, we'll track them a little bit. But likely, again, the flow, we're not going to be digging drops too much. We're not going to have, again, the flow is just way too fast as well. Upper level energy is going to be screaming down over that western ridge and really moving across the northern U.S. And anytime upper level energy is just moving from east to west and at higher latitudes, it's very hard, to get big systems, especially as higher north. Higher latitude, I should say, not high latitude, but higher latitudes. It's very difficult. And then as we progress here, this is where we start, I think, to keep an eye here. A lot of models suggesting a potential polar vortex stretching event. So those are complex. So expect a lot of different, model runs with this. I don't know how the beginning of this time frame goes potentially. I think there is something to watch here. Down the line, and we'll kind of this out. But there is a polar vortex stretch, and I'm guessing that's what you were talking about. It's maybe not as sexy as the P-type map would look. A little bit. I would love to see that. I would love to see that dig a little bit more. A little too late, in my opinion. If we're gonna embrace the long range GFS, that's still pretty good though. Obviously. I'm glad I called out the pattern being better before this happened. But I am kind of eyeing now a couple of long range signals, and I know I'm trying to push myself to look at more long range signals this year and try to give you guys kind of insight. I kind of just say wait it out, and it's still the same thought process here. Again, I'm still a relatively amateur in my opinion. I'm glad you guys enjoy the content, but I try not to put myself so high up on a pedestal. And try to, I trust myself. I'm confident in my abilities, but I'm not going to ever, claim I'm some special, meteorologist here. I'm not even close to a degree meteorologist. But, I do have some thoughts on how this plays out. I think there is potential here. To get some bigger, and we're going to slide here kind of to the Jeffs. Actually, we'll peep the euro quickly. Euro's probably kind of out, but I kind of want to see how we're trending near the euro. And we're going to talk about, what we're looking at here. Oh, I like that look, actually. I like that. Yeah, euro had some changes on the operational this run. So you can see OZ 12. So again, none of these models are perfect, but you can see stronger. Look at that western ridge. Oh, holy man, look at that Alaska ridge right there. That is a behemoth of an Alaskan ridge right there. So it's kind of what has me excited right now about this. So I know the dreaded GFS, but still a model. It's definitely better than the Canadian. So even though it didn't perform better than that model, I'll can't give it too high props, but I'll kind of die on that hill a little, I guess. Let's see how the Jeffs kind of plays out here. I'm very interested in this period. At face value, you would look at this and you'd be like, "Great, talking here." So maybe one thing that doesn't go right if your upper level energy starts, you're going to get a polar vortex stretch. It appears here potentially, or at least some lobe of vortex is going to start to kind of dig. Is going to start to kind of dig down here as we see this take place. The lobe of the polar vortex, you can see 480 line here. It's super cold air right there. You're going to have a lot of deep trough. Look how deep your trough is on this run. Super deep trough here. Super deep. Even just the 18Z. Look how deep your trough is there. It's centered a little bit further west on this run, which I wouldn't love. But that's a super deep trough here. But look how it's tilted. This is not. This is a positively tilted this point here at hour 2:07. So potentially, again, you've heard some overrunning. Potentially, I don't know what to make of this quite yet in terms of specifics. I'm not even close to specifics yet with this. But one thing I do know is about this. Again, this specifically would be a little bit too far west for my liking. So again, that could maybe be like some, more favored in interior, possibly the beginning of this time frame, maybe the 18th to 19th. There'd be even a couple opportunities in here. There could be like 3 opportunities technically from the 18th to the 26th almost. But what happens here is what it is, and this is what I really start becoming intrigued about is really deep troughing, a lot of upper level energy getting sent down now at this point. And you have, again, your polar vortex, so you'll have some deep Arctic cold air, very cold air, the coldest air this. We've had cold air. This would be the coldest air of the season. This we've had in terms of a real significant polar vortex stretching event. More significant, not major, but this would be a significant polar vortex stretch here, more than we've had. So we've had a lot of cold air already, but not like it hasn't been like absurd. I mean, we've had some pretty cold nights here, but especially wind chill wise, but we haven't seen that like massive Arctic outbreak. Spider, got it. So we haven't seen that quite yet. But what we have now is this is deep Arctic air. And what I like here is the placement of this western ridge. And I like here on the GFS and, keep the Euro ensembles as they start to come out. I think based on the OZ Euro, those might look a little bit better than they did at 12Z. But we have a deep, and this is a bit close what the Euro has. So kind of a little, like to see more model agreements at this time is, and almost even a 50-50 look technically. Not technically, but a little bit here. You have a solid eastern ridge here as well. What does that mean now? We have not had this in place. You can compare this to what we're going to have currently. You see how fast the flow is, how much troughing we have over this area. We're kind of relying. We have we've had strong blocking in place for a while now. That's going to kind of start to fade here. And you look at that and maybe go, oh, 50-50. That's not going to get the job done here. It flows too fast. Ridge is too strong. To the west there, that's not going to get it done. But as we see here, look what happens. Notice our ridging. This is widespread across the models here. We see some sort of polar vortex stretch here start to take place next weekend potentially. And then as this plays out here, we have a good eastern ridge in place now. What does this mean? To finish my thought, now we can drive moisture up the coast here versus pushing it out and trying to rely on a cyclone to amplify this and throw this up. Now, there's no this storm can't out here. Now this could change relatively. This is not locked in by any means here. They change, but not by a crazy amount. So we have more consistent. All the models are pretty not massive, but a moderate Atlantic ridge here. That takes place here again, centering a little bit of southeast ridge here as well, which is we're actually kind of okay with that. But I wouldn't mind seeing even a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm kind of excited about this. So I'm a little bit. My thoughts are a little bit kind of all. And I know at face value, this doesn't. You look at this and be like, "Isn't this pretty? Isn't this like a cutter pattern?" Well, look how we're tilted positive here. we have that western ridge in place. Look how much your polar vortex is coming in here. Your polar vortex lobe is centered around here. So this is troughing that's moving up in a storm moving up here. This is your polar vortex actually pressing down on all your pieces here. So this is not you think it is. I saw a few people say cutter. And no, this is not a cutter look by any means. It could maybe theoretically if you kept trending this ridge, then maybe, but we haven't seen that quite yet. We have a decent eastern ridge here. We have a solid western ridge here over Alaska and parts of the western coast of the U.S. And we also deep troughing. So now we have a deep trough, very cold Arctic air, and moisture driving up the coast. Not a cutter look because we have a western ridge. Those are recipes to create a really good thermal gradient, and that's what all about big weather events are. It's how significant of a thermal gradient here. This screams, let's create science. Let's make weather. That's what that kind of just at face value. And so that at that part, even if we're more interior, is very intriguing. And then as we progress here, notice what happens here. You still keep your eastern ridge in place. Still kind of a little bit of a southeast ridge here. Not necessarily a full-on positive AO, at least negative. Well, not a full-on positive NAO here, the GFS ensemble, but you still have that Alaskan ridge here. Now your polar vortex low maybe sliding more east, and now maybe more of a coastal threat for possibly a storm down the line if the first one were to be an interior. But I think somewhere in this time, even if you were to go back to, a Canadian ensemble, that is as well. You can see a little bit stronger here on the Canadian, a little bit stronger with the eastern ridge here originally on the Canadian ensemble, but stronger with the western ridge. And notice more positively tilted, not as connected as a trough here. So this isn't necessarily like a full-on cutter look as well here on the Canadian ensemble. I have no idea what it did with the operational. We can kind of peep a look there, I guess. But you see, it's not the look you think it is. Even though you have that strong eastern ridge, you're not seeing a full-on cutter here. You're really, it's kind of pretty disorganized here on the Canadian. Kind of cutters, but really, again, you're not seeing a full-on storm kind of amplify here. That's more like anfrontal snow, kind of almost, and then maybe something kind of behind it. So I think there's multiple opportunities here, and I also know we've tried stronger with suppression as we moved into the medium range. Models have kind of played behind here. Again, we're going to be trending towards a weaker NAO here, so it will be fading at least. So we're going to be kind of trending away from that at least like a little bit, but I'm pretty intrigued here with how this might with how they play out. I think there's some prospect here with this event that or not event, but pattern. With the way we reload the pattern here, I think there's absolutely some opportunity for some potentially significant storms now. I would say a little bit, at least the beginning. I would say the 18th, 21st, at least that kind of time frame. I would say that at least for now, just based on what we have, I kind of have to say it favors the interior a little bit more, but I'm not really locked in, so to say, at least at the beginning of what comes in. You can the euro here and start to get an idea here, but you can kind of see the euro too. Look at that. And that's not the perfect look here, but you're driving a lot of upper level energy here, and you're gonna allow that it's a pretty big, actually more of a southeast ridge here, southeast ridge here on that one. But you can see here, you see that what we're doing is, don't look at the p-time map for what it is, but now that ridge in place, we're driving moisture up the coast here now. We have strong Arctic air in place, so you create that battle zone, and you have good Arctic air in place to work with here. You you can get a pretty big snowstorm. Now, I would love to see if we can slow the flow a little bit. Otherwise, we limit this potentially for some of these events down the road. So that's why I would love to get more vertical. Kind of with the ridging here. The Euro maybe backing off just a little bit from, was it? Maybe not. I could be wrong. We'll see. Oh, well, toward the end of the run, not so much, at least. But maybe the beginning. I could be wrong. I'd be completely wrong. I actually like the 12Z run better so far. Could be the same. A little bit more vertical and further east and taller of a western ridge, but also weaker south, at least beginning wise. But that would be maybe a little bit too strong of a ridge, and I would really prefer here if we could get more vertical. That's the one thing I would like to mention it instead of kind of going more of a full-on southeast ridge, and this is still not a terrible spot, given that we're still going to have that western ridge in place here. But I would love to get a little bit more vertical here, back this off just a little bit so we can allow our trough to kind of sink in here a little bit more, because this thing is going to dig deep and it's going to pull in moisture. But we would love to get this to sink deep closer to the Gulf of Mexico here, some of our troughing in this time frame. Again, it's so far out, so there's still plenty of time. So that's why I'm not really looking at this as, this is like very concerning or this is very good. I just think I think there's going to be an opportunity here for some big storm potential. And I'm trying to, pinpoint, who's going to get it is really the question here. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it's a cutter pattern. I know I see the people are kind of throwing that out there a little bit. To me, I don't see it as that. I just think your polar vortex is going to be, especially if you get it. It's hard to say exactly how that plays out, but I think that's going to be pressing too much on what's happening here for you to be worrying about this, full-on cutters. You can maybe get interior solutions here, but even then, you could still get some front-end thumps, even if this were a more interior favored, snowfall here. Euro kind of dislodged the polar vortex out into the Atlantic on this run, so that wouldn't necessarily be a good long-range run after, but definitely not as good as the GFS in the long range, as you can see. But definitely some disagreement there with kind of how that out. But yeah, I think this is I don't know what happens after, but there's been some decent ensemble support as well for the back half of January here to be able to still continue to kind of reload this pattern with cold air. I don't know what happens with that. I'd have to guess we get warmer at some point briefly, either at the very end of January or February at some point, but who knows? Who knows? It is hard to kick patterns to the curb, so the pattern changes, you'll have a good opportunity there as well. So if we were to kind of switch up the pattern, but I think there's some opportunities here down the road to be able to kind of cash in for some snow events, and maybe you can get a sense of that. So we'll go to the panels here. Actually, first we'll go to the surface, and you can see it's not necessarily the most perfect way to do this, but you get a sense here. Well, it's only an hour 300, but there's snow potential here. I think it's the 18Z, so this thing ain't fully built yet, but you can see, keep filling this in. There's still very much, for right now, favors the interior a little bit more, but we'll see how this kind of plays out. I wouldn't necessarily not favor the interior too, especially for the beginning, of this, pattern reload, I kind of call it, but more snow. We're probably going to be tracking more things down the road here. Maybe not, like, I can't promise you we're going to be tracking a big old snowstorm here from, DC to Maine, but there's definitely opportunities for more signals to occur down the road here. Look at that look. Drops the polar vortex. Like that 18 did a little bit better, but you get the idea a little bit that some significant snow events are possible down the line here, and I'm kind of intrigued, especially at least the beginning of this time frame, kind of uh, 19th to 23rd, kind of. If it were to be the 18th, it would probably be a little bit too early for my liking. Probably still favored. It would probably favor the interior a little bit too much if we were to see this more 18th. I would love probably to be more 19th to 21st. If we were to get this to be, maybe still interior, but not, far interior. Maybe some, kind of some thoughts here. Maybe this could be more of, overrunning front end thump, for I-95, and then, favors just interior places for the heaviest snowfall, for example. Maybe something like that. And at this point, based on the last couple winters, I don't think anybody's complaining, about that. And I really don't think this winter's been that bad to start here, in my opinion. I know we're below average in some spots, um, but I really don't think it's been, just based on, I know it's a lower bar from the last couple of winters, and I think, I should be, for a little bit that, we've had some, not so fun last couple of winters, but, it really hasn't been that bad. We've had cold air, we've had threats, the track, just not as close, uh, to hitting, as we would like to be, but sometimes there's very minor margins that can make or break your winters. Sometimes it's not, it's all about the result though. At the end of the day, right? Sometimes you can play a really good game and still lose, and all they're gonna remember is, a lot of times that you win or lose, and you'll only remember how close you were maybe to winning or losing, and that's the reality, right? Nobody remembers the second place team and all those, and all maybe the Warriors have, but nobody remembers typically that second, besides like the iconic games. So you're not remembered for second place. So it's all about the results, and I get it. I don't remember the storms that produced 3 inches for me. I remember the ones that produced 20 something inches or 15, whatever. The bigger ones, obviously. What's the most NYC can get? I'm assuming you're talking about tomorrow. 1.5 inches at the most, probably. The general idea. Appreciate everybody in the YouTube again. Hit the like if you don't mind. It really helps on YouTube. Again, if you're an X, appreciate the opportunity as well. You guys aren't as active, but I know you guys watch there for sure. So I appreciate all y'all watching right now. And listen, maybe it hasn't been the winter you wanted so far, but I really think there's some decent opportunities here. Again, anytime you can really get some deep Arctic air to meet with a good moisture source, coming off the Atlantic, I think, and potentially tapping into the Gulf of Mexico, I think that that can very much be intriguing. Get a sense here. Here was the 12Z ensemble. Oh, OZ's already 150 hours out. It's fantastic. That's good, but I'll show 12Z. You'll see it. So you can see as this develops, a little bit stronger of an eastern ridge here than the GF. Not too bad. But again, you see here we're pretty positively tilted with our trough. That polar vortex kind of pressing down, and then we kind of look here at the end of this. Definitely not the same as the Hero operational that kind of played out there at So I wouldn't look too much into some of the long range operational runs quite yet, at least. But um, there's still going to be cold air on tap, likely through almost the end of January. We're going to have cold air on tap to work with, and that's the thing. We have cold air to work with, polar vortex stretch potentially here in this time frame, and then again this time we have some ridge. If we trend like we have, again, it's not quite have a fading NAO here, but we do have a strong. We're gonna have a strong western ridge in place. Look at that 12Z run there on the ensembles. That's a dome of high pressure over Alaska, the western U.S. here. You know that there's definitely some opportunities here, and the only thing I can really say that I would love to do is if we can get this ridging to get just a little bit more vertical. You can see the euro almost trying to get that ridging a little bit more vertical here. If we can be able to kind of work upward a little bit more and be able to kind of sink this back. We really then what we would do, again, it's pretty simple. Just look at it. You're driving more vertically versus more of more of just from the southwest moving through, at a flow here. Really allow, potential storms, more opportunity for bigger systems, more cleaner stream interactions. Again, you're going to have a lot of fast flow here. As you can see, models have no idea. So that's another thing too. What this is going to come down to potentially is how does your upper level, this one we didn't get our upper level energy to come together at the right time, and that kind of broke the ceiling here. It's not the same necessarily, but you are going to have a lot of upper level energy that's going to be diving down over that western ridge. Again, you have that cross polar flow here with the polar vortex coming down, upper level energy diving in, over that western ridge here, and that is, if you're able to you can get some really big systems to occur. So there's with just strong enough upper level energy and a tight enough thermal gradient here. This is a thing too, is when you have the potential for a stronger thermal gradient, that's what really gets me excited. Again, that eastern ridge in the Atlantic there, that West Atlantic ridge along with call it North Atlantic, that North Atlantic ridge there with it's Western Atlantic, that's it. That West Atlantic ridge there with that polar vortex, diving down, bringing a lot of cold air. That's more than intriguing. And you'll see models go all over the place with how the polar vortex stretch, kind of plays out itself. But the general idea here, that's what excites me. I'm not anywhere close to, on specifics of this whatsoever. People are kind of trying to already pin down, is this going to be interior? And again, that's what they're trying to do, and the details. But based on the amount of model movement we've seen, I wouldn't even try to pin down specifics right now. All I would say is there's an opportunity for some really there's not real. I don't want to overhype it, but there's opportunity for significant snow events to still occur out of this pattern. Potentially major snow events out of this pattern still. So I wouldn't, some of you are ready to jump ship on winter. It's every winter. People jump ship in freaking December every winter, no matter what's happened. The only way they don't is if they've seen 3 feet of snow already in one storm. That's like the only way someone doesn't. It's just that it's every winter because their backyard didn't get the snow. This really hasn't been that bad of a winter, in my opinion, so far. Again, it's all about relative to where you live, but the general theme so far of this winter for the eastern U.S. really hasn't been that bad. A lot of you guys are snow deprived, and I think it's a carryover from the last few winters itself, more so than the last couple winters itself, rather than this winter. So giving you guys some leeway on that, but it's unacceptable. Can't have it happen. It's just, you guys just got to be patient a little bit. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I hope you have a little bit more balance in your life. Hopefully, um, clearly Ashan doesn't, because the Celtics and the weather is all he cares about. So he's doomed for tonight. But I think there's some opportunities here. And he didn't just repeat yet. Sure, as long as you send it to me, I was hoping I would get in on that one. Only had about 5-6 inches of snow on that one. Wow. New York City had 30 inches. We need that Atlantic ridge and anything to help us get rid of suppression. I agree. Here's the thing I don't get is, a lot of people keep complaining about suppression, like we need to slow the flow, and then all of a sudden when we do, they get all doom and gloom about it. It's like, it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. You gotta pick one or the other. I get it. There's a little bit more gray area in that, but this isn't a cut. I really don't think this is a cutter pattern here. If we were to really see this western ridge here back off, and our Atlantic ridge continue to drive westward, then yeah, this would not be a great pattern here. But also you got to remember ensembles. This is a mean here. So a lot of these height lines here, this is like an average mean. So maybe what this ends up being to is right here is where your Atlantic ridge is, and then like, oh, that's the western edge of your Atlantic ridge. That's not a bad spot to be in with how deep diving and how pressured the care is. Don't underestimate. That's what the one thing people aren't realizing. They're typically looking at this. This is not a trough centered at the base here, fully wrapped in. That's already wrapping up this way. This is not the case here. This is cold. This is lots of upper level energy present here. Look at this. I mean, you can trace it back. Four different troughs within all your area here on this operational run. So this is not I mean, that'd be pretty cool if there was one big megastorm across the whole continent of North America, but that's not how it works. This is a pressing polar globe here. You can see that the troughing, it's not we're positively tilted first of all, and we're also pressing this very far down. Imagine this. You get used to. Don't imagine this like. Don't imagine this as if we have a block. Imagine that this is a block right here. This is your polar vortex working as a block. This is going to press down on anything that happens here. And what's going to happen is it's going to throw waves off of this. It's going to propagate waves off of it. So if you go to 500 millibar vort here, you'll see what I'm doing. It'll propagate upper level energy. You'll see it'll throw it around off of it. You see what happens there, and you have a cross polar flow as well. So you have opportunities for phases to occur. It's going to throw down upper level energy here. This western ridge, that's your cross polar flow. And then you have your Atlantic ridge here. And so instead of suppressing this, now what happens is you drag moisture up the coast. And this is where you can cash in. Now, if we're more vertical, notice what happens. See how all of this gets spread out. All of this starts kind of getting sheared out a little bit, and you really do struggle to fully consolidate your upper level energy. If you are able to drive this ridging a little bit more vertical, that could potentially allow you. I'm just saying what we're looking to happen. Because that's really all you guys care about. You're not going to happen. You care about how we could. And that's kind of the angle we take here. I'm not a professional meteorologist. I don't, analysis based. You guys know that, where we hone in on analysis. But, obviously we want to figure out how we can get a snowstorm. That's what you guys care about. The big events that can happen here. And if we drive that, you can just see it here. What's the path of least resistance here? Notice it. You can see it. This is your ridge. Look where the precipitation stops here. Look where the convection stops here. It's no shocker that if you move your ridge further up, where's it going to go? Right here. That's where it's going to go. And it's going to be shear as less, and it's going to drive more vertical. And I also think you set up the longer range even better after as well. If you're able to do that, you can allow for multiple storm opportunities. Even if you do have more of a southeast ridge versus a more vertical Atlantic ridge, but you could still very well cash in. We've had plenty of significant snowstorms with Southeast Ridge. They're just, less often do you see a Southeast Ridge, oriented, with this kind of setup here. And you're able to get, if you really want a super high ceiling, you want that, that big snowstorm, why not dream big? But, I'm sure y'all will settle for, like a 6 to 12 inch event for sure. Uh, but that's the intriguing part of this pattern, in my opinion. You have what we've been asking for is to slow the flow, or at least slow the flow Atlantic, and that's what we're kind of do here. And so we're gonna get out of this suppression, what is a depression for some people. Even though again, there's gonna be sun tomorrow. Don't sleep on that. But as we progress here, polar vortex stretch happens. This is where I think some of the 12s, was it? It's about the same actually. It's pretty good. Can see maybe a little bit more pressing with that western ridge, which is not a bad thing. A little less vertical with our Atlantic ridge. I mean, mainly it's just pressing a little bit less. So not necessarily a bad, yeah, it is a little less vertical up here. I would love for us to back this part of our ridge off right here. That's what I would love to do. You could still, again, I'm just trying to reach for the stars a little bit. That's it. I'm not saying this is, I don't want to get too caught up, but one thing I would like to see is I would love for this ridging again to kind of drive a little bit more vertically here, because again, even though the polar vortex here will work as a press, one thing a block does do a little bit better is, kind of traps stuff in a little bit better versus, the vortex, kind of works around. So stuff continues to flow. It is a little bit harder to slow the flow sometimes with you know, with the vortex stretches. But, again, one thing I would, like models can sometimes tend to smooth out, have trouble, sometimes overdo it, kind of get caught up too much, and you see over amplification sometimes long range runs, but also sometimes, they kind of, the farther they get out, the struggle they handle, cyclonic, genesis there, and struggle to be able to be able to handle the kind of ins and outs of what can make a big a stream interaction, so to say. And so until we get to the medium range, we don't really have to worry about the specifics of that too much. The general idea is we're gonna start transitioning here. It's a little bit more favorable pattern here, for less suppression. So we'll limit our southeast snow chances a little bit, but we'll still our southern snow will still be present. We'll still have snow for anybody that lives, there. So it will just be kind of more focused across a lot of the same areas. And again, probably not, at least at the moment, not favoring southeast snow for any of my folks that we got some peeps that live down there. But I really think, at the moment, I think there's some potential here for like overrunning events for coastal regions, and then interior snow at the moment. It's kind of a little bit where my head's at, but I really don't have a clue. I don't really have a clear clue, to be honest. That's kind of just a layman's guess on what we have right now. Um, I don't have a good feel quite yet, because I want to see polar vortex stretches, especially a bigger one like we're going to see here. Complicated, hard for models. A lot of upper level energy still to work with here. In favorable phase of the MJO, we're going to have a lot of convection present to work with here, and the strengths of the ridges and the placement of the ridges. Huge. We have two big ridges that are going to happen here. Love the placement of this ridge. I love the placement in the long range here. Absolutely. I don't love this. I like the prospects. I don't love it. I would love, again, the GFS is more of what you want to see, in my opinion. So not forecasting the GFS, but you see how we're more vertical here with the ridging? It allows troughs to sink in and we can get more vertical with storms. More flow off the Atlantic, slower flow, faster flow, shearing out, more upper level energy, going vertical, bigger potential, and more coastal potential as well, closer too. So I kind of, I like the GFS a little bit more. Kind of consistently keeps in that opportunity there. So that's a pretty decent look there. Again, you don't need a negative NAO to be able to get snow in New England as well. That's a real solid. That's a decent look there in my opinion. That's actually a really good look. I know it's a long hour 354. Even in the ensembles, the members change. That's a solid look right there. That's a very solid look. That's like an amazing look, actually, in my opinion. Placement of an eastern ridge. Still have that Alaska ridge kind of over the Pacific, troughing centered farther east. That would actually be a kind of a golden look, but it is hour 354, so can only do so much. And again, I do have some trust issues with the GFS right now. Canadian still taking its sweet old time to load out. Euro ensemble. Loading out here. Don't love that. That's not bad. There's more of a southeast ridge though. We're getting more. There's a pretty big difference here in the long range. More of a full-on southeast ridge. No, any of your polar vortex present here. You do have your Alaska ridge here, so it's not necessarily a cutter look, but personally for me, I think I think waviness is more sexy in my opinion for me. So that's kind of what I get drawn to so far out. But is out, like I said, the GFS hour 300 whatever, and the Euro hour 300. The Euro is not necessarily going to be so special 300 hours out. And like I said, the Euro did handle it a little bit better than the GFS. I'm not going to say it was amazing, because it did suppress it too much in the medium range, but definitely did handle it better than the GFS. But I will say that the Euro still. I don't really have a lot of trust still in this. Really, all of these models, I really don't have a lot of trust in. So I don't think any of these models are some gold standard, in my opinion. None of them are. So you just kind of try to get a general idea and hope that try to get a general idea at least. So that'd be fun. Even if it gets out of there pretty quickly, we get some pretty heavy snow. Long range GFS fun. Look at that. Hey, that's pretty good though. Still a pretty big snowstorm. So even if we were to get something, I mean, the GFS is a real good placement, I believe, of the ridge, at least a little bit more. I mean, the Euro actually still had a pretty decent storm on that one in this time frame. But you can see the GFS here. That is a very good look. You can see the GFS get a little bit more vertical. You can see we drive up. That's what I would love. This GFS here, the general idea. I don't know what's going on out here. So we're vertical here with more vertical with our ridge here. And, we're a little strong here. I would love to sink in even just just a little bit more. Amazing. The deeper you can dig your trough, the better. In my opinion, I always love to increase the amplitude, dig that trough deeper. That would be a beautiful look right there. Obviously, um, placement of the Eastern Ridge, then your Alaska Ridge, kind of over here, forcing that cross polar flow to kind of drive up the coast. That would be golden. So let's hope the GFS has a few tricks up its sleeve here in the long range, because that would certainly be come to mama look right there, come to papa, whatever you prefer. Uh, that would be the look right there. For sure. Honestly, it'd be multiple opportunities, I think. Look at that, too. You're not really getting right timing there, so even that, look at that. Look at that dig there. That's Arctic air, man. It's deep Arctic air. Look at that. Look at your polar vortex stretch here, man. Beautiful. Beautiful. And one thing I will say is the longer range, we're trending a little bit further west with this trough in here. A couple of weeks ago, models were about, maybe even last week, maybe 7 to 10 days ago, models, a lot of this had all that blue was centered further west. Saw some of our northwest people trying to get excited, thinking that the pattern was happening for them. Not quite yet. And so that's the thing. If we continue to trend like we have so far, if this is a more suppressed look than we have now, then that would really turn on bells for me. And it'd be a little bit closer to what the GFS is. But the GFS still has a pretty good, strong ridge. It's just a little bit more vertical, which is beautiful. I would love it. I mean, I would love that general look there. If you have a ridge that vertical there, and a ridge in the placement too, you're forcing whatever comes to be able to have to. You're allowing trough in deep here, and you're forcing it to come up the coast. You're pulling in real deep, warm moisture here, warm air, and you have very cold Arctic air. I'm telling you, there is, and even if you weren't as vertical at the ridge, regardless, you have an opportunity for maybe some like very heavy snow events, maybe not long duration necessarily, but you would have some opportunities for heavy snow events to take place. You kind of see that here with the Euro on this run. Again, less vertical with that ridge, but an opportunity for, see how sheared out. I mean, look at that. It's like a 500-mile wide death band. I mean, look at that. That's crazy. Look at that. Look at that band there. Incredible. Just a long area of strong preset. Kind of see that. And that's not necessarily a bad bet, close to too far off from what I would kind of think, kind of a coastal. I mean, this is not a threat quite yet, but you can see here, that's still you'd still get pretty heavy snow that come in through, and something like that, even in a Euro, like that would be a little bit less favorable. If you want to geek out with me here, let's see, pretty good interior snowstorm still. So, but still, it'd be front end thump opportunities for kind of this area here along I-95. Even if something like a Euro, like I don't want to say setup, but mini pattern reload, were to occur. So I know this isn't getting talked about a lot yet because the 500 millibar maps don't look as, not as like to the, not, I don't want to sound like, like, it's not disrespectful, but like, to the casual weather observer, that kind of has an idea, but not too much. You would look at the current long range and there wouldn't be as much excitement. And also, and a lot of people are talking about the current storm going on and, the wildfires. There's a lot of discussion going on outside of just, what was happening. A lot of people were tracking this event to see how it plays out. So there's a little bit less discussion on the long range when you have short-term things happening. But you'll probably start to see that tomorrow in the next couple of days, I'm sure, and depending on how we trend here too. Um, for me, I'm very intrigued about this. I'm very intrigued. I know it doesn't look right now. It's all about where we're heading. Um, I'm not going to assume we're going to head in the right direction. But, even if we did, even if we held this kind of look here, I'd be very intrigued there. If you took a mean between the GFS and the euro here, I would be very, very excited. That'd be beautiful, I think, for a lot of people. Kind of this. So I think there's a couple. I think there's maybe, I kind of highlighted, a few time frames, but really from I think around the 18th to 26th right now, I would keep an eye for several potential storm threats in that time frame. There's storm signals, 18 to 21st and 23rd to 26th is what I kind of went with, but it could really within any of that time frame, it would just really depend on, how, again, when you have a polar vortex stretch like this, it really just would depend on, again, how the wave energy propagates that. So if I go to easier to see on a specific run here, and I'll use the GFS because it works a little bit better for the example. It's just a little bit easier to see one. So you have your big polar vortex lobe that kind of shoots down here. You have that, so your polar vortex comes here from the North Pole, right? Shoots down, right? Santa's Village comes on down to the U.S. Little lakelet here from the North Pole, and this drives on down. You see this big troughing really digs here. Troughing really digs here, and what happens now is you'll get polar flow here. You have this big western ridge, so upper level energy will come over this too. And so not only will waves propagate off the polar vortex, you have that cross polar flow. So you kind of work counterclockwise here. This upper level energy works around this polar vortex, and then it comes down to where's the placement of your eastern ridge here at this point. That placement will be key, depending on where that is. And then you can see, depending on how the upper level energy, the placement, the timing, and look what you start getting now. You have that big western ridge, and look now, you have upper level energy, right? That cross polar flow, like I'm talking about, kind of. You actually get upper level energy to kind of slide beneath the western ridge almost here, rather than over it. You do get over it as well. But you can see here that your stream kind of meet with the energy here off the polar vortex, stretching event here. It's more cross flow. It's a little bit of mix of both, but and this stuff, I know it's gotten so messy, but northern branch meets a southern branch, and you get a little bit of a phase. Even a little late, a little bit earlier with that, and you dig that just a little bit more, and boy, that'd be even bigger than what you saw there. Look at the P-type map, what that ends up turning into. So yeah, as amazing as GFS run still was, and look, you get southern snow opportunities still, just not necessarily southeast snow opportunities. Now that could change if you were to dig your actually I want to look at 700 there. Look at that. Oh, so sexy. So sexy there. I'm a 700 millibar fiend. Oh, I can claim it. Oh, so sexy, man. Look at that. That's a rated R weather right there. Beautiful. Beautiful. Look at that. Oh, golden. Golden right there. Big old death band. Beautiful. You love to see it. Long range is GFS, but point is, this is what happens if you work more vertical with them. So that's really, if there's anything you take away, is we we would love to see something closer to the GFS down the road here. What do I think is going to happen? I told you, I really don't have a clear idea. Right now, I'd kind of favor kind of I'm just, not, just because it's actually an in-between, but kind of an in-between of the Euro and the GFS. We've kind of we've trended more suppressed towards how we've gone here. Now, models really struggle sometimes. Models over or under amplified the location in the placement of the ridges here, and the strength, I should say, of the ridges. So that will be very critical. But I don't have a good gut feeling on this. My only gut is we do trend more suppressed. You all will be surprised about how good this could be. And even if we don't, this could still be pretty good. Like if we don't trend so crazy, but an in between of the Euro and the GFS now in the longer range here down the road, I think this could be a much better pattern than you think. I think a lot of people are getting too caught up on you need to see red here in here, and you look for some sort of 50-50 always. 50-50 isn't always the best look for a snowstorm always. If you don't get the stream separation like we haven't so far, it doesn't necessarily turn out as good as you think. Now, it can a lot of times be better when you have cold pressing air. It can be better for southern snow like we've seen here, but not necessarily for even into the mid-Atlantic too. Mid-Atlantic obviously made out well so far, but for a big coastal storm, for a big East Coast snowstorm, this is more favorable than what we've had so far. And again, we were so close with the margins for tomorrow and today. We were so close, but it didn't happen. So we can't say it was what we wanted. It was close, but it didn't happen. I think this changes. This is a pattern reload here. You get a big polar vortex stretch. We'll see what happens. We have zero. These are pretty volatile. Not zero, but the general idea is Western Ridge over Alaska develops. Wouldn't mind this pressing more even. Wouldn't mind it pressing a little bit more. That's what I love here. We have some margin to error to press a little bit. And that's the beautiful thing here. Even though we have this eastern ridge here, maybe more of a southeast ridge, depending on how this sets up. Again, we'd love to get more vertical with the ridging, with the high pressure, but a bad look. We have some margin for error to work with here in the long range. We don't have to completely thread the needle here, in my opinion. At least right now in the longer range, we have some room to work with because we have, in my opinion, some favorable things to work with. And that's a little bit less favorable of a look there. At least that long range Euro run wasn't. But models, I think, are really struggling with this time frame right now. Take a look at 340 and compare that to 12Z. A little bit different, obviously, on that run, but maybe that's towards the end of our pattern change, and that's the opportunity. But we can see models still kind of configuring what's going to be going out, and that may not necessarily be as bad of a look as you think too. It's pretty stretched out here. It's not driving up. So that you still have your Alaskan ridge here. That's not necessarily as terrible as a look as you would think maybe if you drive your troughing further south and east. That's not as great how you played it out, but I think there's going to be some opportunities here. I think we're going to be tracking again pretty soon, in my opinion. Again, the interior now can start to get on it a little bit more, and the interior is still made out very good. All the lake effect snow out there in upstate New York, those bands made it out far. So I think Albany, in my opinion, has had a decent winter so far. They've kind of I don't want to say overperform, but they've kind of done well. They've kind of maxed out their snow events with what they've gotten. They've gotten lake effect. I think the Berkshires have done okay so far. Interior had some good events out there in November and December. They had a good strong start. Okay, not great. No major storm for them yet that they'll usually catch on at some point. But it hasn't been that terrible of a winter here so far. But just going to allow some interior places to cash in, and also still allow I-95 to be able to get snow as well. Even though this may not be might not be a favorable look right now for an all-out snowstorm for I-95, but it's definitely there's definitely still a lot of uncertainty with exactly how this plays out. So advise caution with being caught too much. But the general idea is what has me excited. It's I don't have any clue about the specifics yet. The general idea of cold Arctic air pressing with a strong Alaskan western ridge, and now Atlantic ridging to kind of slow the flow in the Atlantic. At least that's going to allow us to work more moisture up the coast. Warm, moist air moving in the atmosphere to meet cold, dry air. That's how you create a very nice thermal gradient. And that's what weather is very, very driven on. Is it's not just P-type maps and upper level energy. It's a lot of times when you see a strong phase happen, because it pulled in a lot of warm air to meet a lot of cold air, and that thermal gradient is going to really allow that storm to really take off. And so you hear it get brought up, but thermal gradients are kind of what make a lot of these things boom here. I'll give you an example. We've talked about this one before. You all know this one. A little slow. 2020. Sorry, I'm using one hand. No storm. This Tomer's map, in other words, works pretty well still. Can zoom me in here. This is an example of a thermal gradient. Oh, Coperton. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Even higher than this too. You can see the 36 plus areas they highlighted. That's an example. I almost zoomed in too much. Come on now. Zoom out one. There you go. This is a great example. This was not a strong system here. This was this maxed out at 995, peaked, and as it moved through 994. I think 994 maybe. 990. Again, it wasn't a strong. This wasn't a 970, 980 low pressure system here, or 960, whatever. This was a weak low pressure system, and it moved through at the low 1000s, upper 990s as it moved through our area here as kind of moved west to east. But what you saw happen here, you had a real nice CSI band that's set up in. I won't go all into this specifics there, but conditional symmetrical instability. Actually, I gotta just forget the. Oof. I got to restudy again. But it was CSI band that showed up. Basically, you just had your heavy snow band, to put it simply. And this obviously well interior. We'll use blue here. To set up well interior. Blue's not conjuring well either, so we use yellow. Uh, Again, you had a really, this was when I believe you had an Atlantic ridge. And you pulled in, you had very warm, anomalous, um, very above average sea surface temperatures here in the North Atlantic. They were well above average. And what you did is you had a strong upper level low to work with. Strong upper level low to work with here that moved through, and this came on in and really ended up sitting a little bit further west. So obviously because where the band set up, strong upper level low that moved through here. And what happened was is you saw this uh, this trough tilt. Then as this moved through, and even though you didn't like see a full wrap up here of a phase as the system moved through it, yeah, I'm pretty. You didn't see like some crazy wrap up here. What you saw is that warm, very warm, above average sea surface temperatures here, still mid December too, so not deep into winter, and this flow off the Atlantic here, and you had a cold high pressure in place. And what happened is that thermal gradient there, you can see how sharp that gradient of it is too, the band. See how confined? I mean, that's a massive band, but over the course, it was a massive band, so it wasn't super confined. The maximum of the snowfall very confined to that area, and that's how you create, you know, some very intense snowfall bands and storms. And so there's opportunities there. So I went too caught looking at a lot of these long range snowfall maps as well. For now, when you have that gradient in place, it really increases your odds to be able to get a significant snowstorm. And in this storm specifically here, um, you know, again, specifically for this storm, what you're able to do is drive that cold air, warm air that you pulled here, and you had a very strong upper level low to work with, very good mid level dynamics, strong 700 volt band to work with. I believe Billy actually has that as his profile, as his banner pick on his X. Unbelievable. Thing was forecasted to be a freaking coastal scraper. I remember it like 3.5, 4 days out. That's where models had it. This was during that was COVID too, so models were at their all time worst during COVID probably. Um, you know, slowly trended, and it looked like this was going to be the bullseye kind of. We thought this. It looked like this area here. At first, Philly looked like it, and we looked. No, it's just going to be north of Philly. It was going to be here, right in here, and sure enough, that's where your band set up. It was insane, actually. Yeah. I mean, we knew that band was going to take off. It's just we thought it was going to be, you know, a good amount further south. I get too caught up on what ifs, but my mind wanders. So, and man, I still wonder about if that band was, you know, about 7,500 miles south. You know what that would have been like. Those ratios too would have been unbelievable, unbelievable. You know, not only that, you know, New York City made out pretty well, but still had about you know, I believe still eight to 12 or 8 to 10, something like that in New York City. But you know, New York City probably would have been 12 to 18, and you know that could have been incredible. Philly probably would have been like 10 to 15. You know, we would have seen, you know, good more for coastal areas. Connecticut wouldn't have snow hold as bad, and you know, again, that could have been very impressive. You know, it was, but just, you know, for more populated areas. So that's an example I like to use of the importance of a thermal gradient here. Is you know, it's not necessarily always about how strong your low pressure is, and you know, I think, you know, weather oftentimes, you know, in weather, you know, that's, you know, one thing that really, especially in you know, some of the classes I took, there is a big talking point there of, you know, thermal gradients are very much preached. You know, at least my professors, that's what they preached. So again, I don't have a degree, but I, you know, did take some classes. So to add on a little bit to enhance some knowledge as well. So yeah, that's kind of one thing I look at, and that's what gets me intrigued, very intrigued. Reminisce here. That was that estimated snowfall there, and that was the thing about this too is those ratios ended up being so good. So even though yeah, Binghamton, I think six. Yeah, it was 7 inches per hour up here too. So if I click on, I think it was New Hampshire. I think Binghamton, maybe Binghamton was probably 7 inches per hour too. But let me click on this or no? Is it going to zoom this bad boy in? Oh, yeah, that's good enough. You can see here. So this is obviously crazy banding here. This is like they're estimated, so this isn't like very accurate. But obviously, the heaviest was out here. But notice how it doesn't show too much here. The ratios were so insane. Oh god, no, don't do that. Your dendritic growth zone. This is as good as a DGZ you'll have, and dendritic growth zone was so good that the liquid amount was really it was like maybe it was 2.5 dendritic growth zone. You had so much lift, and you were so cold in your dendritic growth zone in some of these interior places that you saw 4 feet of snow. You saw widespread, third like this was like widespread here, like 30 to 40, 30 to 50 inches across this area. And that really just enhanced your, ability to get a lot of snow in a quick amount of time. So that's why I really preached. That was one storm, you know, that really, you know, always a reminder about the dendritic growth zone. That was very important. When looking at that, dendritic growth zone was always very important when breaking that down. So that's why I like to always preach it, like to show soundings and kind of break down that portion. A Canadian ensemble loadout. Yeah, let's take a peek. Not too big, but they're Canadian, but it kind of turns out here. Yeah, Canadian's not definitely not as favorable, but good news. I'm not as. Oh, it's not bad actually. Right there, that's not bad. I like the Euro a little bit better. I obviously like the GFS a little bit better, but than that. But I like the GFS a lot of it better, but not bad. But yeah, so that's kind of the general breakdown we want to go over. Um, what to expect here. I'm pretty intrigued with this upcoming pattern. No guarantees for any historic storm, but uh, if you would want to increase, the ceiling for some of these, for real big storms here, I'm kind of craving one, so I like uh, focus on, how you can get, big snowstorms, and the GFS is a little bit closer to what you would like to see, um, in the long range. And again, it's not too controversial, say like, talk about the GFS in the long range, but even after the most recent performance. So none of these models have the right picture right now. Uh, a GFS could be right for the wrong reasons. You never know. Or maybe you'll see a middle ground. The middle ground would actually be pretty. Wouldn't be too bad here. Nemo has good band two difference in our yes. Nemo was a very unique. Not many people have realized how unique that setup was. What model has the best track record? Euro AI has done pretty well. GFS GraphCast, I'm not. It only goes out 10 days, but GFS GraphCast has done pretty well as well. At least scored well. It didn't. It wasn't great, but it did never. It didn't ever really show. The same as the GFS against some of those AI models. They've started to do at least pretty decent. So that it's. Um, but in terms of ensembles, I'd maybe favor the Euro a little bit, but it's kind of a crapshoot for specifics. Right? You rarely see any of these ensembles nail anything from 10+ days out. I don't think any of these models right now have too great of a track record. Now, again, the GFS still struggled in the medium range with the storm, but uh, it's still a fairly, well, it's still one of the best global models. Top two global model, not one maybe, but top two global model, and at least from the operationals, not just if we're not including the AI models, and yeah, it's still one of the top models. So it's really it's always kind of been GFS Euro, 1A, 1B, and Canadian 2, well, 3 technically, Canadian 3. Yeah, so that's how in terms of in my opinion, just kind of eyeballing it with we brought up some of the track score and stuff at 500 millibar heights, but it's a general idea. Uh, I would love for the GFS to be right here, but I don't have anything. I don't have anything to suggest that this is handling it better right now. The only thing that could be maybe is not as suppressed as models are suggesting, and it may be harder for ridging to build back in as prominent as maybe some models suggest, or maybe ridging is going to build in more than what's being suggested. So, but I would kind of lean towards this being a little bit more suppressed. So I'd favor the GFS in that sense, but that doesn't mean we'll get as vertical as the ridging. We'll get that ridging to go as high up. You can see how we basically get into Greenland. We still kind of maintain the negative NAO over a lot of Greenland, almost neutral. Switch it back to pink. We get pretty vertical here with the ridging, and maybe we don't build that in as much. Fat fluffy flakes, fat fluffy flakes. Oh, that's hard to say. Try to say that 10 times fast. Fat fluffy flakes. There you go. Said it. That's awesome, Twisted. Yeah, you could get an inch or two maybe, but probably a half inch to 2 inches at most. A half inch to an inch and a half maybe for you. I don't know. If you're lucky, you get a couple. But what I was going to do here is we can geek out over some of the panels, if you guys don't mind. Have some fun. Oh, that's the meme. There we go. There we go. Some hits in there. Some hits in there. That 15. Give me 15. Give me 25 too. I wouldn't mind that. Actually, that's close. Give me 32, but 15, man. Woo! Give me 15. I'll take 28 too. Give me 30, 200 miles south. It's like pick and choose right here. It's like when you can play with the sliders. Being a decent mean, baby. 15 has two. 2 in a row for me. Yeah, I really want 15 now. 7's a pretty big Eastern New England one. 17, look at that one. Ooh, there you go. So GFS really, again, it's a really good look. You can look at the ensemble mean. It's definitely suggestive of a it might have opened double epic pen. That's why the battery drained sooner this time. But that's probably why the audio cut out there for a second too. Look at that meme right there. That's a pretty good. That's a solid, especially even compared to last run. Look at that, a little bit higher. Not bad. Not bad. This is 10 days. It's 10-day total, so this doesn't include tomorrow. But that's a 5-inch, 4 to 5-inch mean for a lot of, from, Maine to, Northern Maryland there. It's pretty solid on the GFS. But, you gotta remember, the Euro had a lot of long range hits too. Euro had some pretty crazy runs, just completely, especially in the long range. I don't want you to forget that, that the Euro is not some special model. It's scores better for sure, but it's not. It's not some blue chip model, so to say. Let's take a look at the panels here for the. Oh, geez, I didn't realize how far out we were. See if it's the 18th. Euro kind of shows what I'm talking about. It'd be a far interior, but 20th, 21st, start seeing. That's when your opportunities start opening up there. And you can see the Euro pick up on it. Real big coastal thumper there. Number 3. And none of these specifically matter. Just having a little fun here, looking at some of these are just half. We'll look at the second half in a second, but peep there, nice little one on 23. Almost a big one on 18, close. 19 almost too. Pretty good one actually. You can see even here in the longer range, well, definitely some disagreement on specific in the farther longer range, but oh no, I wanted to go here. 26 to 50, you can get an idea. You can see more favorable, a little bit less interior on 18th, 19th there, but definitely some. You can see there's some, pretty decent hits. Yeah, some real big ones for the interior, couple, but longer range ones as well in there. But that's just the general idea that there will be the opportunity for snowstorms here. Look at that Euro ensemble. Euro ensemble means actually higher than the GFS. Believe it or not. Wasn't expecting that. That 10-day mean there. Not expecting that. So 4 to 7 inch mean from Maine to, again, northern Maryland, just about. So was not expecting that. It must have been a just more consistent hits to go along with the big ones. Even though GFS maybe had some higher ceiling coastal ones. Not bad. Not bad. Relatively impressed with the panels, actually, a little bit more than I thought I would be. 34. Now you can go, pick the ensemble run you want here. Personally, I'm taking either 15 or 17 here, but go choose your Avenger here. Choose your Euro Avenger as well. You can see a lot of good consistent, like that 22 paints freaking everywhere. I mean, that's a win-win for everybody. But yeah, 26 through 50, just you can see just stacking up in some shape or form over time. Not necessarily, a couple less, high ceiling, less events, but that doesn't matter really at all. I'm just highlighting it. But that's a really solid there over the course of time. It's similar to what we were pointing out not too long ago with the pattern. We were posting some of those from a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. This has me pretty excited, and I'm a little bit more interior than some of you guys as well. To make you believe again, I'm not making you do anything. So I'm a little bit more. I'm interior, a little bit farther north. So I'm kind of in here. It's kind of where I live. So I'm a like a. For me, I think it's I often don't bust on in terms of snow totals on a lot of winters, just overall, regardless of what happens, because a lot of times I'm either close enough to get the coastal scrapers, um, or the interior events that kind of front end and for example, like this one, I'm not coastal, but wasn't in the interior. This kind of sums it up, but I was kind of in the middle. Still had 6 of snow about. Couldn't make that, man. I'm not going to make you believe. My job is not to turn it around. I mean, yeah, the Euro ensemble. I mean, I was not expecting that mean to be that high there, but I mean, you can't deny it. There's opportunities here. There's opportunities absolutely here, and there's some mixed signals still. But um, think about it. That's not even a full favorable. That's not even a completely favorable look, and it's still a 6 inch mean. So for at least for me, it was like a 4 to 6 widespread. 4 to 6, 4 to 7 inch mean there on the Euro ensembles. So yeah, and the GFS has an even better look in my opinion, but technically less snow, I guess. Maybe a few more coastal storms off the coast that don't enhance the mean as much, but I just even before looking at that, I mean, you can. For me, I look at that and I think that's a pretty solid look in my opinion. That's what I'm looking at. It comes down my thought process behind my interest in this upcoming pattern is going to be more based on meteorology versus what the specifics of the model show here. Um, if this ends up working out really well, then I could feel somewhat good about myself that I was accurate at least once this winter. So yeah, I have a somewhat decent feeling about how this could play out, but I'm not too I'm not incredibly optimistic at the same time. I don't think this is some sort of slam dunk. I do have some concerns just for the general area. For me, I think this is an opportunity that I could potentially, and interior places could potentially get more than, uh, some coastal places. I think there's a little bit more margin for error. So, I'm a little bit more comfortable with how this could play out than New York City and, Cape Cod and Philly, but we'll see how this plays out. We'll see how this plays out for sure. This is not a slam dunk by any means. I will say, watching only a couple of your lives has made me so much better at diagnosing 500 millibar motility maps. Thank you. Vorticity. There you go. There you go, Twisted. Couple steps behind there. All 500 millibars. Yeah, I appreciate it. Listen, I preach the choir to how are we doing here? Okay, still okay. The Mac's kind of overloading, but we'll be all right here. Yeah, I preach really big time. Uh, to be able to close that tab. To be 500 millibars is what I preach. That's how you listen. If you're interested in weather, even if you don't, necessarily want to pursue it, and you just kind of want to understand what's going on, I recommend you go to the one. You're just starting out. You don't need to pay for any model sites or anything. Just go to Tropical Tidbits here. Before you go to anything, before you go to anything, um, you go to 500 millibar vorticity. You go to Z 500 vort, and you look at this first. You look at this first before anything else. Don't look at the P-type map. Don't look at anything else. Don't go to Twitter first. That's the one thing I do now. I don't go to before I log on to WX Twitter to look at your guys' comments. I will never go to Twitter to look at, because I don't want to be skewed in any way. I want to look at it for what I think first, and then read your guys' replies and complaints and how I messed up your forecast, basically. But I'm really glad that I can help. That's really what I like to do here. Is my goal here, especially on YouTube as well. I'm glad that we've obviously built a great community on X. Um, just out of really an accident. Wasn't trying to. Just kind of just kept going. I just really loved the stuff and just kept posting my thoughts. That was really it. And not many people go live on WX Twitter. They kind of just post their thoughts, and I can kind of elaborate, and I really explain. I really understand this stuff better. When I can explain it to you guys. Streaming makes me to explain my thoughts to you all very clearly, and so that's what I love. I go to 500 millibar vort. That's what I go to every single time. If we're in the long range and we're looking at long range pattern, then I'll go to 500 height maybe first. Kind of peep that, but especially in storm setups, I go to 500 millibar vort first, and that's all I look at. I compare run to run, see how it goes, and then I look at the P2 just to see, just kind of line up with my thoughts. And if I don't think that looks right, then I'll say something. I say this doesn't match up with what you're seeing. That'd be beautiful, obviously, but a lot of people go here first and they look at this and they're like, oh my god, look, it trended south. This run, it's over. It's over. Look at it. Oh my god, it went south again. 2 runs in a row, it went south. Oh my god, it's off the coast. We're 5 days out. Why isn't it showing a snowstorm? And that's what people do. And it's like, that's not how models are meant to be used. They're tools to make the forecast. That's what they're meant. But you can kind of see here. Look what I'm talking about. You see, look how deep your moisture source is here. You see that? And look how it's driving up too. This deep moisture meets this very cold Arctic air that's in place. You don't need a high pressure. You have your polar vortex here. So that's how you can get a big snowstorm in this time frame. Don't know. Yeah, I know Joey. Yes, I know, Joey. We've talked to each other before. Um, Talks about the Montana Ridge. What does that do? His claim that is, and first, especially for more specifically New York City, that your Montana Ridge. A lot of people confuse his statement. Um, Pierces is the key word here. So we'll go to, I don't know, is there any? So you have your Western Ridge here. It's actually not a bad spot, but your ridge pierces Montana, so kind of goes kind of that Idaho Montana border pierces. It just forces a storm to be able to dig down. Um, it's a good medium of if it's too far out, then a lot of times that's his baseline he uses for it's going to be too far southeast for, too suppressed. If it's too far west, uh, doesn't pierce. Again, it's general idea. If it's close, then it's some wiggle room, obviously. But if it's farther west, then that's his kind of his baseline for New York City uh, metro area for a snowstorm. So that's how he describes the Montana Ridge. So hopefully that kind of explains that a little bit better. Uh, Quick guesstimate: I have about a quarter inch of snow, and it's puking right now. It's fantastic, Twisted, fantastic. Man, I really hope I can overperform tomorrow, man. Could use some good ratios. Would love to get 3 inches of snow, but I'll settle my my floor forecast, or actually my forecast for me tomorrow is, I mean, it's 1 to 3, but more so like 1.25 to 2.5 is kind of closer. And I would love to get over. I would love to get a surprise of 3 inches of snow. That'd be fantastic. But I think I'm 2.8 away from the seasonal double digits. So that would be the ceiling goal tomorrow. But really, anything more than like an inch and a half of snow, and I'd be I'd be satisfied, um, or I'd be happy. But makes sense. I'm glad. Yeah, but I really want to go through. I just need enough to cover the ground. Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's the thing too. It's going to hold. We're going to continue to be pretty cold still through this pattern. You can take a look at temperatures and see what we're still doing. I don't want to die randomly here. I hate looking at dead bare ground in winter. Yeah. So that's the thing with this pattern. We're still going to hold cold pretty well here. Maybe a few days above average, or not above average necessarily, but close to average. So, but for the most part, we'll hold that cold air pretty well in place, especially later next week as well. Especially next week. Um, this weekend to Monday could be a little bit above average, but we're gonna get a really good look at that polar vortex come in, man. It's gonna come in rumbling. It's gonna come in, man. It's definitely gonna get cold for no doubt next week, and the next weekend especially. But that really the week after, so about 8 9 days from now is when it really starts to drop below average, very below average. Probably coldest potential for coldest temps there. This could be more of a true like Arctic outbreak um, down the road. Yeah, we get cold, man. We're probably going to get pretty cold. And then we'll have a more favorable storm track for storms to ride up the coast as well. So that's why you think about it. This is the thermal gradients I talk about. This map highlights it perfectly. See that? You have your eastern ridge. You can see it on the temperature map. Then you have your polar vortex digging down. You have a storm track to ride up the coast. Look what happens. See that? Simple meteorology here. Not that too complex. Pulling warm air along this boundary here, up the Gulf Stream. You got your cold air in place. cold air meets warm air. Yeah, winter did just start. I hate when people say winter's over. I mean, it's whatever, but it's like, man, just let it happen. Let it play out. Whatever happens, happens. So yeah, we'll be patient. We'll be patient. I'm pretty intrigued in this personally. For me, I'm pretty. Um, I'm almost just as excited. Obviously, the idea of having that pattern. We really haven't had that in a while, so it's kind of sad in now, and people have. The hype is gone now, which is good, but um, I'm pretty intrigued about this upcoming pattern. Winter's over. Get your lawnmower ready. As Queso says, ban him, chat, ban him. Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that kind of dirty talk in here. That's nasty talk. So for now, it doesn't look like a long range duration polar vortex stretch, but good enough. What would you say this pattern reminds you of most recently? I don't have one off the top of the head. Um, if the GFS were right, it would remind me. It would remind me of a pretty good pattern, though. That's for sure. It would be pretty good. But I don't know. I don't have one on the top of the mind, but you don't need a negative NAO in place to get snow in the Northeast. It's a big common misconception, or the Mid Atlantic for that matter. It's not necessary, but more so the Northeast. I think it's more important. The Atlantic, it's a little bit harder, but Northeast, you don't need a 2015 repeat, don't we all? This is probably not going to be that if I had to guess. Not the same power to that polar vortex event that took place. Unmatched, probably. That will go unmatched for a while. That's an historic winter. Historic. But we wait and see. I was gonna say is, again, it's not as excited the hype maybe, but for, at least especially for New England and the Northeast, I'm almost just as excited about this as I was the last one for different reasons based on what we know now. But I'm pretty intrigued. Maybe not once in a lifetime, but um, I'm sure it'll be something. Listen, climate change, the way it's evolving, there's some crazy changes that are going on. We're really changing the prospects of the polar vortex, how things play out. Think about it. We're in the climate we're in. The fact how below average we're staying here with temperatures is pretty impressive. The winter of 2024, 2025 has been below average for a lot of people. So I think that just about kind of sums up my thoughts. Again, it's kind of late now, but I'm tired. I barely slept last night, but I do want to put out. I guess I won't do it, but I will put out my snowfall thoughts, especially for New England, my alma mater. Still am, obviously, but yeah, we got snow tonight, tomorrow. Don't take it for granted. You never know when you're going to see snow next. So never take snow for granted. That's one thing I really recommend. Every time it snows, um, appreciate it like it's Christmas morning, because you never know when it does it next. Even if it's regardless if it's 1 inch, 4 inches, 8 inches, 12, 24, whatever. However many inches of snow it is. Don't take it for granted. It does not always snow. Yes, we will. We'll maybe look to stream tomorrow night as well, potentially. Have a good night, y'all. Have a good night.